Ahead tonight, parliamentarians take aim at criminals with a new compendium of bills.
Has a new Junkanoo judging rule created a schism?
And we've got the latest in the teachers' union saga. The National Report starts now.
Now in HD. ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight. This segment of the news is brought to you by BTC, powered by Lime.
A group of bills designed to strengthen the crime fight is being debated in Parliament. Good evening, everyone. I'm Keishla Adderley.
And I'm Andrew Knowles. Thanks for joining us. Lawmakers of our Parliament are debating a compendium of crime bills which are designed to put the Bahamas in line with international standards. Carla Palmer is following House proceedings.
The compendium of crime bills comprise 6 in total. These include the Evidence Amendment Bill No. 2, 2013, the Penal Code Amendment Bill 2013, the Firearms Amendment Bill 2013, the Anti-Terrorism Bill 2013, the Justice Protection Bill 2013, and the Prevention of Bribery Amendment Bill 2013. Moving the second reading of the group of crime bills was the Minister of State for Legal Affairs and Member of Parliament for Central and South Eleuthera, the Honourable Damien Gomez.
They are all related to the international obligations of the Bahamas in the wake of the blacklisting that had occurred.
Amendments to these bills calls for increased penalties across the board for varying offences. Minister Gomez says the overall effort aims to significantly reduce the level of crime in the country.
The legislation is intended to remove any doubt as to our resolve to stamp out criminals wherever they raise their heads in our community.
According to Minister Gomez, the government plans to make more effective use of its crime-fighting tools like closed-circuit television and anklet bracelet system. With a noticeable increase in the proliferation of gang activity over the years, Minister Gomez says for the first time, Parliament is introducing legislation to effect change.
Those who indulge in this sort of activity will be hunted down, will be brought before the courts, and will be adequately punished. That is our mandate.
Seconding the bill in support was the Member of Parliament for Seabreeze, the Honourable Hope Strawn.
Aside from becoming bolder, more equipped, and more sophisticated in some instances, criminals are becoming increasingly violent, more vicious, and more hardened.
The compendium of bills is timely, as the Bahamas will host the Caribbean Action Task Force meeting next week here in the capital. I'm Carla Palmer for ZNS Network News.
As promised, police prosecutors have been relocated from Bank Lane to the South Street Magistrates Court complex.
However, as Kendino Knowles tells us, the move is not going as smoothly as anticipated.
The entire police prosecution section, which includes 42 police prosecutors and support staff, have all been relocated from Bank Lane to the Magistrates Court complex on South Street. The move is expected to significantly impact the administration of justice at the Magistrates Court by hopefully cutting down on the waiting time for dockets to arrive. It will also help address the backlog of cases said to be in the thousands. However, the move is not sitting well with those 42 staff members. While much of the staff declined on-camera comment, we were told that they were not given notice until last Friday that they had to immediately vacate their offices, forcing them to scramble to pack and secure numerous boxes of confidential court files and other documents. We were also told that in order to speed up the process and ensure that the files were secure, staff members also helped to move boxes of confidential documents from Bank Lane to South Street over the weekend. And when our news team arrived at the police prosecutions in Bank Lane this Wednesday, a few staff members were still there. However, they prevented us from entering the building after explaining that boxes of confidential files were still stacked in the lobby. When we visited the South Street Court complex a short while later, there were concerns about adequate accommodations for police prosecutors who are all being housed in the section of the complex where night court takes place. Meantime, those vacant offices in the former police prosecutions building in Bank Lane are reportedly expected to become 5 Supreme Courts in the near future. Kendino Knowles, ZNS Network News.
The government is hoping to ink a deal with Hutchison Whampoa, which will lead to the expansion of the Freeport container port. The Prime Minister held talks with executives of the company in London yesterday with plans for follow-up discussions. The hope is for increased investments with Hutchison and the creation of jobs that Grand Bahamians have been longing for.
Hutchison Whampoa has been a dominant presence in Grand Bahama for decades, operating properties like the Arlucaya Resort, the Freeport Harbor Company, and the Grand Bahama Airport Company Limited. And now talks with the Prime Minister propose a larger presence and bigger business at the Freeport Container Port, one of 52 ports Hutchison operates worldwide. Financial Services and Investments Minister Ryan Pinder is part of a delegation in London.
It was an opportunity for the Prime Minister to speak with senior executives, to talk policy, to find, to really get their further commitment, which they gave to Freeport, and a commitment to have further discussions, and possibly further discussions in Hong Kong at the corporate headquarters to solidify certain policy initiatives so we can attempt to grow not only the volume, get commitments to the expansion of the port, and commitments, like I said, to further industrial development.
Grand Bahama's economy has been slow of late, but its designation as the largest deep-water container port in the Western Hemisphere could soon prove a valuable advantage for the second city as Hutchison looks to expand and double up on profits.
Further investment and commitment to Freeport for the port facility is very important to them. Now, being able to keep it economically viable is also very important, and that's where the industry and trade policy of the government and having it aligned with the business philosophy of Hutchison comes into play.
The deal, once completed, is expected to take off within a year's time with a more modern, automated system and, most importantly for Grand Bahamians, much-needed job opportunities and training.
I can't give you a finite estimation at this time. Certainly as we further discussions with Hutchison, and we'll be able to provide that finite number. But certainly they're high-tech and good jobs for Bahamians in that field, in the logistics and port operations. And we had discussions on how we would cause for the National Training Agency to partner with Hutchison as they look to modernize the port to ensure that Bahamians are prepared for the new opportunities. But it could be exponential growth.
Meantime, the government is looking to take advantage of networking opportunities as well. They'll be prompting Hutchison to send business in this direction so that the country can begin to turn the corner on economic improvement and job creation. Keishla Adderley, ZNS Network News.
The Prime Minister was scheduled to leave London for Sri Lanka today for the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. Mr. Pinder explains how he expects the Bahamas to benefit from dialogue with world leaders at those talks.
There are a few agenda items on the heads of government that may be of relevance to the Bahamas. Certainly evaluating the global economic situation is on the agenda, but specifically there we look to discuss matters relating to small states and how we can get further cooperation amongst the Commonwealth countries to advance the economic interests of small states. Many small states suffer from similar burdens such as high debt and really a stalled or prolonged immersion from the global economic slump. And we look to be able to approach some of the larger Commonwealth countries to form strategic opportunities to address some of those needs.
Well, the Ministry of Finance amping up its educational campaign on VAT for members of the business community. Business owners use the opportunity to air their concerns about the new tax system, which will be implemented on July 1st of 2014 at a rate of 15%. However, Paradise Beach Club General Manager Tony Knowles and Tony Butler of Rolls Auto Parts both say they're not completely confident about this form of taxation.
We're booking out 18 months in advance, and we need to know how exactly we're going to be impacted, what are those costs going to be, so we can remain competitive. Is it going to be a savings for the country? We hope that it's best for the country, but we want it to be, it needs to flow well, it needs to be seamless.
I know it's going to be the law, but as a business owner, you need to be prepared for it. and you need to know exactly how it's going to impact your business, how it's going to impact your cash flow. The first question I have is the old inventory that I currently have, how is that going to be impacted? Because new inventory coming in after July 1 will not be subject to the same levels of customs duties. So I need to figure out how I'm going to handle my old inventory that I paid the higher duty rates on.
Now, following a presentation by Financial Secretary in the Ministry of Finance, John Roll, participants were given detailed information on everything, including the VAT registration process, the legal framework, and VAT compliance.
They need to understand the way that the credit system works for VAT, meaning that whenever they pay VAT on their purchases of supplies or services, that they keep a separate accounting for that, such that when they file their returns on a monthly basis, they can recall the total amount of VAT that they paid on their input.
Solo, right? The Bahamas Union of Teachers has intensified its work to rule as coaches and sports teachers have voted to suspend all after-school sports programs. The move comes amidst growing tension between the BUT and the government over a myriad of outstanding issues.
This past Sunday, President of the National Congress of Trade Unions, Jennifer Isaacs-Dotson, said unions would allow time for the Prime Minister to address their concerns before taking any further steps. But Belinda Wilson says while she's grateful for the NCTUB's support, she feels her union has waited long enough. Clint Watson has the latest on this ongoing dispute.
Get it right, Fitzgerald, get it right.
President of the Bahamas Union of Teachers, Belinda Wilson, says they're turning up the heat in the dispute that's been ongoing for months and in her view has produced nothing more than meetings with repeated information. Minister Fitzgerald says the latest move by the union has financial repercussions.
Those teachers who perform after-school activities are paid to perform those activities. If they do so, we will find other people to replace them. I mean, it's as simple as that.
Still unsettled on health and safety concerns, promotions and other financial matters, President Wilson maintains the government is not hearing their cries regarding monies owed to teachers. However, Minister Fitzgerald suspects this latest move may be an ulterior motive.
Give us a timeline and a date as to what amount you're going to spend, when you're going to spend it, and when can our members expect to get their funds.
I don't know why the President and the BUT have not understood this. Finance has said this. They will, and we will pay the funds to them during the course of this year when it becomes available. That $3.5 million will be paid to the teachers this year. If the BUT and the President thinks that this is going to in some way put pressure on me as minister of the ministry to allow them to have free will in the schools, well, they might be in the right church, but they're totally in the wrong pew, because it's not going to happen.
We have been denied access onto school campuses where our 4,000 members work. That is a direct violation of our industrial agreement.
The BUT has filed formal complaints to the International Labour Organization, and they are expected to conduct an independent assessment.
That he's not going to win this fight because we're on the side of right. And I think it was foolhardy for him not to accept an invitation from someone in our country of the stature of Dr. Miles Monroe.
They want to have union meetings, they can have those union meetings after school, no problem. If there's an emergency and the officials need to go on the campus, no problem. But to go on campus when they feel like, that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And Dr. Miles Monroe, as much as I respect him and so forth, that's not going to change our positions.
And with both sides fastened to their position, it's hard to believe there could be any resolution to this issue. However, observers say it could be outside forces that moves a hand of somebody in this matter. As to who will move first is yet to be seen. Clint Watson, ZNS Network News.
Member of Parliament, the Honourable Frank Edgecombe, has died. The former Fox Hill MP passed away quietly last evening at home, surrounded by family. A teacher by profession, Edgecombe served as the MP for Fox Hill from 1977 to 1987 before being appointed Senate President, where he served until 1992. In a statement today, Fox Hill MP Fred Mitchell said he was truly saddened by Edgecombe's death, but was happy that Fox Hillians were able to honour him while he was alive, renaming the street where he lived after him. Mr. Edgecombe was featured on the ZNS show Legends some time ago, where he talked with our Opal Roach about his experience in the lower chamber.
There were those the colleagues who you helped, and when you looked for help from them, it wasn't forthcoming. But through it all, I think we got on quite well, and there seemed to have been more camaraderie. At that time, we cared much for each other, although I mean, there was the opposition, but we did it, like I said, in a friendly manner. Today I wouldn't want to be an MP for all the money in the world.
In our first look at weather, we have 17 days remaining in the tropical cyclone season, but outside of our studios, we have partly cloudy skies. Your temperature 77 degrees, relative humidity 70%. Your winds out of the north-northeast at 30 knots. Your barometric pressure 1,017.0 millibars at 30.03 inches, and it is steady. But stay tuned. Temperatures around the Family Violence travel and boating forecast is still to come.
Well, still to come, a fisherman's tale that's all true. Ahead tonight, the country who turned the Bahamian fishermen away in their distressed vessel.
And later on in Family Island news, the Exuma Beach Resort pushes to stay on the competitive edge. You're watching The Bahamas Tonight.
This portion of the news is brought to you by Shell Helix Ultra. Performance you can see.